Good evening, and welcome to ISD 191, Burnsville-Egan Savages School Board meeting. Today is January 24th, 2019, and the time is 6:30. I'd like to start by welcoming our audience. I'd like to thank you for joining us and for showing an interest in our board work together. With that, Director Miller, would you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, with that, we will start by approving tonight's agenda. Do I have a motion?
I move.
Moved by Director Chester. Second?
Go ahead.
Seconded by Director Miller. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving tonight's agenda, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Moving to the information portion of our meeting, I'd like to welcome Principal Erica Nesvig and Assistant Principal Isis Buchanan to the podium. We will receive a report on Eagle Ridge Middle School. Welcome.
Hey, good evening, board chairs, directors, and superintendent. I am Erica Nesvig, the principal at Eagle Ridge. I've been at Eagle Ridge for the year and a half now. Before that, I was a principal at Harriet Bishop and a teacher at Harriet Bishop. So happy to here to tell you a little bit about what's been going on at Eagle Ridge.
And board chair, directors, superintendent Amoroso. My name is Isis Buchanan, associate principal at Eagle Ridge Middle School. I've been there since the end of July, but I've worked as a principal and associate principal at other schools before that.
Okay, to start off, we just wanted to talk a little bit about who we are at Eagle Ridge. This is a graph that shows our demographics. It was interesting today when we were looking through this, we looked back and over the 10 years ago, how our building has changed. We were 73% white 10 years ago compared to 48% white. Currently, our Hispanic population has grown from 8 to 18%, our Black from 9 to 13%, and our Asian from 8 to 12%. So that's been our growth over the last 10 years. So tonight we're going to talk about our site improvement plans and our goals. One of our goals is focused on reading. And our building leadership team works in the spring to put together what our school-wide improvement goal will be for the next year. In the past, Eagle Ridge has really focused on a whole school goal. So if our students we have a 50% proficiency rate, our goal is to move all of our students up. This year, we really dug deeper into our data, specifically to look at the achievement gaps and who in our school maybe aren't achieving at the same level. So within that, we found that our Black students were the ones that we really wanted to focus on. So we took our reading goal and we looked at our goal is to really improve those Black students to go from 36% proficiency to 40% proficiency, and that would be starting to close the achievement gap between them and the white students at Eagle Ridge. This is our data from the last 4 years for our MCAs. Something to note is in 2016 was when we became a middle school. So before that, 2015 before, it was a junior high. So every year we've been growing a couple percentage points in that reading and getting that proficiency, moving that proficiency up. This is the data that we looked at to really tone down where we wanted our school improvement plan to look at. And so when we looked at it, we saw that discrepancy with our Black students. What we also noticed was our Hispanic and Latino students have been making some significant growth over the past couple years. And then our Asian students have too, and actually we were recognized by the MDE for the growth in our Asian population last year. So we are seeing some of our student groups grow, but obviously for us, our Black students were not growing as much as those other groups. So it made sense for us to focus on that. So within that, when we create our school-wide improvement plan, we really put together some action steps. And the building leadership team really wanted to focus on AVID. We have been implementing AVID at Eagle Ridge for the past 4 years. Really having some success with the AVID elective classes, which that's a group of about 30 students in each grade level who take, during our Blaze time, they have an AVID elective. But we were finding that from our data showing that as AVID school-wide, we weren't seeing a lot of the strategies being used in the classroom, and it was more just in that AVID elective. So within that, we felt that we wanted to have a goal that would benefit, of course, all of our students too. Not only would it benefit our Black students, but this would be something that would benefit all of our students. And so one piece of AVID is the critical reading strategies. So last spring, the building leadership team, the BLT, really looked at what are some of the reading strategies that would help our students during pre-reading, during reading, and then after reading. And so we looked through all of the different AVID strategies, and we came up with these 5. And so as a BLT, we looked at the impact that this would have on all of our students, and then also the strength and how it would strengthen all of our core curriculum areas. And so this fall, all of our teachers and the communication teachers taught the AVID 5 strategies to all of our students. So every single Eagle Ridge student right now knows these 5 strategies. This last quarter, then we started using them in all of our content areas. So if they're in a social studies class or in a science class, the teacher can say, well, let's do a list group label right for this, and the students will know what to do. And really where we see the benefit this is when we have students who are going to 8 different classes all day long, for us to have common language. That's going to benefit everybody, but it's also especially going to benefit our EL students and our special ed students, where it's really been a lot more concise for them, and we're all saying the same message, and we all have those similar expectations. Just this last Tuesday, when we had our PD day, we looked at student samples from second quarter, and all of our content areas broke up, and what they really found is putting together some next steps. And we looked at, for those students who are doing well with these, what's the next step we want to do for them? And we really talked about how can we bring them up to that next level. And then for our students who are still struggling with this, they talked about doing more student samples, giving them samples of what to expect, and putting in some success criteria for that. So this has been our work, and really being positive. The teachers are really talking about how it's really brought them together, and the students are bringing it into all of their classes that they're doing. So then the other piece with it, of course, is that we're also focusing on our Black students. And those AVID 5 strategies will help these students, their reading comprehension. But really for our Black student target group, we've gone even that step further. In grade level teams, the teachers have looked at who are our Black students that aren't meeting proficiency. And within that, having those discussions about what are things that we are doing for these students. Really tracking grades, tracking their failure rates. How does that compare to how they're doing on the MCAs? Talking about some of those study skills. What are some of those skills that our students that aren't proficient, do they know how to study for a test? Do they know those sorts of things? Lots of phone calls home, making those connections with family, and then doing some check-ins during advisory. And I have that plan, do, study, act, because that's a piece that they're doing is throughout the year, taking a look again at those that Black student target group and seeing how they're doing. So now what are we going to do next? So we're continuing with a school-wide AVID, continuing to learn about that and implementing that. We're also looking to strengthening our MTSS model. When we talk about the school-wide AVID and the AVID 5, we're doing that for all of our students. But what are we doing for those students that's not working for? Where's our next step that we're doing the interventions? And then really something that it's important to me is that we continue to strengthen our relationships with our middle school parents and making them feel welcome and making sure they know what's going on at Eagle Ridge. So with that, then, we also moved into really looking at our culture and climate at Eagle Ridge. And Ms. Buchanan is going to talk about that.
And so one of the things that we started to notice at Eagle Ridge is that there has been a change in our school culture and climate this year, and our data supports that. And so some of the data points you can see here, but it shows that we've had a reduction in our number of student incident referrals as well as the number of student suspensions. This next slide goes into a little bit of the why. And so we've done several things to improve our school climate. And so last spring as a staff, there were discussions about expectations for students at school, and those were redefined. The expectations were discussed with staff, and then all staff members committed to holding students to those common expectations. this summer, and this is part of the time where I started on the team, we sort of worked with our positive behavior intervention and supports team, and we created a school-wide behavior plan. We put together a lot of pieces that have been used from the year before, and those revisions, and we're able to make sure that our plan included, and I'll highlight some of the things, but one of the things that it included was a schedule for proactively teaching and reteaching our FIRE expectations, and the FIRE stands for Focus, Integrity, Responsibility, and Excellence. And so we set dates throughout the year where we intentionally target reteaching those expectations. We also created some defined behavior levels so that staff and students had a better understanding of, what are minor things. So for example, level 1 things would be things that students on their own, like if, reminded by an adult, could try to work to come up with some things to do to change their behavior. Level 2 was more involved with the student and that teacher working together to come up with some plans to change behavior. And level 3 is the most intense, where there's the student, the family, and school staff and administrators who are usually working to create plans to help change student behavior. We also included in the plan ways for us to acknowledge our students and staff as they were successfully meeting the expectations. And so the behavior plan helped us align our work as staff so that we all were using common language and had common expectations across our building, which allowed students to have a much stronger focus on staying in class and learning. One other component that really has contributed to our work of improving our school climate has been restorative practices. And so a lot of that work involves our advisory times, where twice a week students participate in advisory circles. And we also really work to make sure that we're solving conflicts between student to student or students and staff, and really trying to identify the root cause of some of the problems so that things don't repeat or continue to go on. We also focus on repairing the harm and really focusing in on creating positive relationships between all those that are involved in a conflict. And so this next slide just shows you a little sample of how some of those things look. And so some of the things we have done, we've had no tardy parties, which we've also made a schedule where once every month, students who have one or less, or 0 to 1 tardy, get to have a no tardy party in which they get to do something fun that usually we come up with, that we, based on our knowledge of student interests. We've had some open gym time throughout our day, like on Fridays before school, and also during our lunches, we've started to have the gym open just to have an outlet for students to get energy out to help them, do better in class. We celebrate our staff often throughout the year, so the cart you see with all the snacks, we had it was the cart of smiles. It was a cool cart. But when we notice things like pressure is getting high or stress levels, maybe we try to do something fun to come together as a staff to say we're all in this together. We also have biweekly student fire award ceremonies. As administrators, we're in classrooms and throughout the building a lot, and so we're really visible, and students see us and staff members see us. And then we also tried to promote the use of our Good News Fire postcards, in which you can randomly send a positive to our staff or students, and then we encourage our teachers to do that with their students as well. And so really trying to embed some of those things throughout our whole school community. We really strongly push the message that everyone matters at Eagle Ridge. So from our students to our families to our teachers to our EAs and cooks and custodians and the community around us, that really it takes all of us to help create that safe school environment.
So we have a lot to celebrate at Eagle Ridge, and we appreciate being given the time to tell you a little bit about what we're working on. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. Wonderful report. Board members, are there any questions or comments? Director Schatz?
Thank you. That was a lot of exciting things happening at Eagle Ridge, clearly. A couple things I really like, how your achievement gap goal is not just raising one group, but raising two groups and bringing those two groups together. That's a great way to address it. But I'd also like to know a little bit more about what advisory time is.
So advisory is, they have lunch and then advisory, so it's a 22-minute, they have 22 minutes for lunch and 22 minutes for advisory. And within that advisory, they have a 5-day schedule. So 2 days a week, they do advisory circles. And advisory circles is, basically they get into a circle and it's really a community building thing. You could have a question from what's your favorite type of ice cream to, you know, boy, this world event happened, kind of what are you feeling, what are you thinking? It's really just kind of it gets all the voices in the room. One of the things I had heard from students last year was they're like, nobody ever listens to us. So it gives them that opportunity to listen. And sometimes if there's something going on at school, how could we make the school better? That would be a place that you did it, that we brought it. The other 2 days they do what's called Ramp Up to Readiness, which is a college ready, it's out of the University of Minnesota, and it's a curriculum that we use that college and career ready. Gives them some of those tools to help them get on to the pathways and brings that connection there. The other day is a day where they do avid binders, grade checks, those sorts of things to help, and that goes along with our school-wide avid piece.
Director Chester?
Yeah, I wanted just to, as a parent of a child at Eagle Ridge, I just want to thank you for the presentation and being witness to the impact that the Avid 5 has had on just my son who struggles with reading. I've seen a lot of growth because of the school-wide presence, and it works really well in the special ed program.
Thank you.
Director Courier?
Yes. Have you at all looked at mobility of some of your student groups? I know of a family that I'm working with, and they have great difficulty due to finances, and then they end up moving, and I know that impacts students. I mean, I've worked with families before, and that mobility, it interrupts the stability of curriculum and relationships, and I don't know if you've looked at all at your mobility rates.
I haven't, but I would say this, I would say in the last few years, as we've really looked at our McKinney-Vento students and really being in tap with students who might have that barrier where, because of financial reasons, they need to move to a different house or they need to move in with grandparents. I think having counselors and social workers at our buildings has helped us be more in touch with those things and know what's going on and help us get that transportation set up. You know, we have students, and I know them who, in this year, they have maybe moved to 5 or 6 different places, but we're able to keep school the same place, and that's been helpful.
I don't know if the public realizes that if a family is technically homeless, we try to keep those youngsters in their original home school, and the state allows us to do that. So that's a good thing, if a youngster can keep those relationships in their home school. Thank you.
Great point.
Good report.
Great point. Thank you, Director Courier. And Director Hume?
Thank you for a great presentation. One thing that I think many of us have heard either with our relationships with other people or on social media is about behavioral challenges at the middle school. So I really appreciate this slide that you had that shows the decline in issues that you've had this year. Do you think the students and the teachers, it sounds like they've probably noticed that. Are you hearing much feedback from parents also about that?
Yes, I haven't heard as much from parents, I think, and that's part of what I say, that middle school parent communication and connection, because that's not very strong yet. And so that is one piece that we need to grow, and I think they would see that. Some of our parents who volunteer, they talk about when they come through the halls, it's just very different and those sorts of things. But I will say numerous times throughout this first semester, we have teachers who just come to us and are just, it's just a different place, and they just feel it. And you'll have kids who talk about it's a different place than it was in the past. And so they are feeling it different, so my hope is that message is going home. And I think I was talking with somebody is how do we get this message out that we have changed? And we're kind of at that halfway point where really now we are seeing that our data and we're sticking with it. The first quarter I was like, is this going to keep with us? And it was. So
Yeah, because anecdotally it can, you hear things, but when you
Right.
actually have numbers to back it up one way or the other, I think it's
Correct.
really helpful. So thank you for that.
Yep.
And then we also do some things with our PBIS, with team meetings, where we're always looking to focus in on things where we see a flare-up of problems with, for example, cell phones. And so then we really push reminding students to put their phones away for the day. But I've had students who said to me that things are so different this year than last year. I don't know if they always are glad about that change, but the adults are, happy about that. And even substitute teachers in our building who have said it's, like a new place when they're walking through the halls at our school.
And ultimately, they're in class more and they're learning more. And that's the reason why we're doing it, and I think that's been the biggest difference is kids are in class and they're learning more than they were last year.
Director Miller? Did you?
Isis, Erica, thank you for coming out this evening in this balmy January evening. Two things. You recently had some construction. Curious how that's panning out. Went the way you wanted it, and things are working out. And then speak about you missed one little piece of your annual halfway there celebration.
yes.
That's unique.
Yep.
So.
Yeah, so our construction is great. I think that even this year more, where I see people using the common areas. We had the walls put up. I think that helped a lot. But now we have those common areas, and we see more and more. And again, that was getting those expectations. If you're in the common areas and you're working there, you need to have a pass and you need to be working. Those are, and so I think teachers are more open to using those areas. So that's been really beneficial for us. And yes, tomorrow morning we have our halfway to graduation ceremony, and that's something that started at MW Savage, and we've continued it on at Eagle Ridge, where it's our sixth graders exact half. This is their halfway between their K-12. And so tomorrow we have some speakers. We have a senior from Burnsville High School that went to Eagle Ridge coming back, and then we have some avid students speaking. And then the students we changed it this year. The whole day for sixth graders is going to be different. They're going to stay with their advisories all day, and they're going to do some kindness stuff with a counselor. They're going to do some yoga things with our social worker, and then the sixth grade teachers are going to reteach some of those things like, how do you send an email to a teacher if you're missing an assignment? And those things that we need our sixth graders to know to help them to be more successful. And so the kids are pumped about the day. The teachers are pumped about the day. So we're excited to try this next adventure tomorrow.
Great. Just to close this up, I have a couple of comments myself. Thank you both. This was just a really incredible report and provided some really great insights into your work in the school. What stuck with me is the both and that you're doing in terms of making sure that you're focusing on the students, the really needy students, and also implementing commonalities for all. So that in doing so, we're helping everybody, and that a focus on a particular group of students doesn't mean that others aren't getting what they need as well. It's simply just improving the system overall in terms of academics and referrals and behavior and culture and climate, and that really warms my heart. The restorative practices I always appreciate hearing about. It's a great way to make sure that we're keeping our kids in the classroom to have that learning time as much as possible. And also another theme that I've picked up on across some of the other reports that we've gotten is the fact that we are increasingly caring for both staff and students, and that health for everybody is important for everyone's success. And I just appreciate that focus. So thank you very much, and stay warm.
Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, next, we have a report. I'm going to provide an update to people on the superintendent search, and with assistance from Director Courier. On Tuesday, January 22nd, the 191 School Board hosted a workshop with School Exec Connect, our superintendent search firm. Doctors Ken Dragseth, Tony Johns, and David Cleff will oversee the recruitment process for our new superintendent, with Director Dee Dee Courier acting as board liaison to School Exec Connect. Included in tonight's board packet are the documents which will guide the timing and content of our superintendent search. And now I would like to invite Director Courier to review key events on the search calendar. Director Courier.
Thank you, Chair Alt. Emphasis, a couple of announcement emphasis. Reminder that I am the liaison to School Exec Connect, so send inquiries to me, and I will respond to those, and I always copy that to Chair Alt. And then we received, thanks to Director Chester, a characteristic chart for leaders and asking people to rank order. I will be asking Jamie to send that out to board members, and board members, if you would fill that out and bring it to your interview with Exec Connect, so that they will have those characteristics that we would prefer in a superintendent search. Tomorrow, the internet feedback goes live for community, staff, and students, so look for the links on our internet web pages. We'll have that up tomorrow. On February 4th, staff, students, community, and the board will be meeting with Exec Connect to do the input, board members in particular individually, and the specific kinds of staff members will be giving input to them. On February 11th, it's the last day for the online survey. January 25th through April 1st, Exec Connect will be recruiting candidates for us. April 9th, 10th will be the first round of interviews of candidates. Then, depending on who we select in that round of interviews, we will choose 2 to 3 candidates as finalists. And then April 15th, 16th, and if needed, the 17th, we will do an all-day interview process with the finalists. Then 15th or 16th or 17th, or the 16th or 17th, we will narrow it down to a finalist. Then we will negotiate a contract with the finalists. The day the new superintendent will start is July 1st, 2019. Again, all this information will be on the website beginning tomorrow. Any questions from board members? It's a very condensed schedule. We decided as a board we wanted to condense it on the premise that we want to get the best one first. So that's why it's rather condensed. I thought School Exec Connect, their eyes kind of got big when we said we want this condensed. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Director Courier. And some new information that's available just today. The position has been posted publicly to professional associations, including MASA, MSBA, Alliance of Latino Administrators and Superintendents, National Alliance of Black School Educators, AASA, and Education Week. The online survey, which Director Courier mentioned, will be available in Spanish, English, and Somali, and that is tomorrow. And just to clarify the process, input gathered from the survey, focus groups, interviews, and the February 4th meeting at 7 o'clock here at Diamond Head, mark your calendars, will be the foundation for the superintendent profile and to inform the search process itself. This information will be used by School Exec Connect and the school board as a guide for our deliberations. As Director Courier mentioned, we are still in the early planning stages, so please look for more information. It will be available, information, dates, and meeting locations will be available on the district website and in social media. And on behalf of the school board, our thanks in advance to all who share their thoughts and opinions throughout this process. All right, next, we'll move to the business portion of our meeting, to the consent agenda. Although board action is required, it is generally unnecessary to hold discussion on these items. In the event a board member wishes to discuss an item, that item will be moved for separate consideration. Is there anything that board members would like to separate? Hearing none, I will take a motion to approve the consent agenda. So moved by Director Schatz. Second?
Second.
By Director Courier. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. All right, new business. Adopting, I will address the next two agenda items. First, a recommendation to adopt a resolution to abolish the Technology Committee. And just to provide some background for our audience, following our regular board meeting on January 10th, the school board held a workshop in which we reviewed board committees and assignments. As a result of our discussion that night, we determined that our committee structure would change this year. The Technology Committee, originally an ad hoc committee created to provide board input and guidance in the Vision 191 referendum, is on the agenda to be abolished. The board expects to receive periodic reports on technology in 191 and will, of course, continue its oversight of our investment in technology district-wide during the budget process. With that, I will take a motion to adopt the resolution.
So moved.
Moved by Director Humes, seconded by Director Miller. Questions or discussion? Director Miller.
I would just like to reiterate and enforce what Cheryl just said. You know, the language is absolutely correct in the agenda. We are abolishing the Technology Committee, but it's a little stiff also. We had, I think, a healthy discussion, and I was frankly going into it not comfortable with the idea, but was convinced that we are going to keep our eye on the ball with technology and cover the check the boxes necessary. The committee just became superfluous at this time as it was, but that doesn't mean the work being done is going away. I just want to be very clear about that with the community. So.
Thank you very much, Director Miller. Any other comments, questions? Hearing none, all those in favor of moving the recommendation, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. And next, we turn to another committee. The Student Performance and Achievement Committee has always been informative to board members. And SPA is always the one committee with a waiting list to join. Therefore, this committee will become a committee of the whole with the expectation that the full board will receive periodic reports from staff as in-depth reports at regular board meetings or in a workshop setting. Let me just move. Sorry. I will read the recommendation. The recommendation is that the Board of Education adopts the revised resolution for the Student Performance and Achievement Committee. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Director Schatz, second.
Second.
Seconded by Director Chester. Questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the recommendation, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. And we will, once we adjourn, we will move to a workshop on the FY19 revised budget and initial FY20 budget adjustments. I will take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Director Courier, second?
Second.
Seconded by Director Miller. All those in favor of adjourning, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned. Let's take